I'm Butch Phillips, Lieutenant Governor of the Penobscot Nation. I was also team leader for Team Penobscot on our journey to Alaska. 1992 was designated as the year of the indigenous people. In commemoration of this year, it was felt that we needed something unique to celebrate this special year. It was decided that the annual Sacred Run would retrace a portion of the inland migratory route of the native people. The Sacred Run was formed to bring attention to the environment and to better the relationships between mankind and this planet we call Mother Earth. This special event by the Sacred Run would include a journey up the Yukon River by canoe, the ancient mode of transportation. Being canoe people, the Penobscot Indians were a logical choice for this task. Early on the morning of June 21st, the summer solstice, Team Penobscot, paddling a 27-foot war canoe, set out on what would become a historic journey. Paddling 400 miles in 12 days, Team Penobscot visited the Athabascan Indians in the villages along the central Yukon River in Alaska. We went to Alaska as athletes to paddle the Yukon River, to see Alaska, and also to visit the Athabascan people who live along the river.
So I wanted to go and see Alaska. I'd always dreamed of going to Alaska and seeing the landscape that I've seen in National Geographic, and I wanted to go there. And I was willing to sacrifice to be part of a team and to be with other men. My first recollections are of the trip leaving here and a lot of the fun and the camaraderie we had en route to Fairbanks, and a lot of the fun that we had, the joking, a real good kind of spirit, good morale amongst us.
It was about a 2-hour and 40-minute flight into Caltech from Fairbanks. As I looked out the plane window, all I could see was miles and miles of trees. This feeling of complete remoteness took over me, and I really realized I was going into the deep interior of Alaska.
As to the river itself, I was amazed when we got there. I knew that it was going to be big just from the stories that we'd heard and the reports that we had gotten, and I knew it was going to be quite a challenge. Of course, canoeing is part of the Penobscot heritage, and so to go on this trip and do the canoeing part up the Yukon River was a very special trip to me, and I really look forward to it and had a good time planning it as well as participating in it.
This trip was a little different for me. I never grew up near a reservation, so I really had no idea what Native American culture is like. I went to Alaska. I just saw everything different than what was portrayed in TV shows and the history books. I remember first village I flew into, Canoe, and I remember flying around the village and looking down to a little muddy dirt runway and just seeing how primitive their lifestyle was compared to what I was used to.
There you go.
As we got off the plane, there was no reception committee there for us. And so we had to make other arrangements to find a place to stay. And we were very fortunate because a lady named Eliza Jones took us in as if we were her own children and gave us a place to stay and took care of us and fed us.
This is the person's house where
And just walking around through a village was just like something you'd get out of National Geographic. You know, I remember, you know, walking around behind a house, and I was walking with Pat, and we saw a smokehouse, and saw all this meat hanging and the flies swarming around it, and it was just like, it was just such a culture shock because neither one of us had really seen that.
In the meantime, we come to find out that our canoe had a few cracks in it. So we got a grinder, and Butch and I began repairing the canoe. We grinded all the seams down in the cracks, and we mixed the resin and put the fiberglass on it, and we repaired the canoe.
I don't remember how I was chosen to become the logistics person, whether it was my easygoing personality with dealing with people, or the fact that I was a good cook in planning the meals. But I was really honored that the team chose me to become the logistics person for this trip.
Just by luck that I got to go on this canoe trip. I was asked, and I loved it, jumped right up to it. I was a little nervous about it because I am not a professional canoer, or I have not participated in any races. And the only canoe experience that I have is recreational.
We were really greeted there and hosted by some really beautiful people, and I started to get a sense that I was in a land that was bigger and more enormous than I had anticipated. Looking at the river at flood stage, that there were a number of conditions there that were powerful, and that to complete our journey, there would have to be tremendous sacrifice and plans made that would take into account many unexpected things.
When we first saw the river, we had a lot of doubts on whether or not we could paddle up it. We sat there and debated for a couple days whether we should continue the trip or postpone it or just not do it at all.
There was also quite a lot of concern about actually being able to do this physically. Can we actually paddle against this 8 or 10 mile an hour current that was coming down the river at the time? And there was a lot of discussion about that, and eventually it came down to the fact that we said, well, let's at least try it and see how far we can go before we defeat ourselves and just decide not to do it at all.
There was a strong current coming around the bend right in front of the boat landing. But I looked at it, and from previous experience in a war canoe race on the Penobscot River, which was a strong current going upstream, I had confidence that we could do it.
In our ceremonies that we offer tobacco and sweetgrass, and it's really prepare ourselves for then, still a major undertaking. And this is something that is a common thread here in our own land with what we did on the Yukon. There was a time that we focused in the morning on the real purpose of our journey, and that was to reconnect with our ancestors and commemorate what our ancestors may have undergone, and certainly what the Athabascans have undergone through their years on the river. We prayed for unity and brotherhood and really focused ourselves as a team. And during those morning ceremonies, we were joined by natives from the villages from time to time, and they too prayed with us.
Once we got into the canoe and we started to paddle, and the way that that canoe leapt through the water.
And the people were actually amazed when we took off to see how fast we actually went upriver against the current.
I think it wasn't for the help of the Creator and all the support that we received in each of the villages, our task of going upriver would have never been accomplished.
There was one man who helped us from day one. His name was Mike Semikin.
Unquestionably, Mike contributed a lot to the success of the team. His knowledge of the river, his knowledge of the people along the river helped us immensely.
A force bigger and larger than ourselves is what I attribute as part of our strength to traverse this river.
The trip up the river was a challenge for myself because I haven't had much experience in canoeing, and paddling up against an 8 or 9 mile an hour current was a task on its own.
The trip itself on the Yukon River was a toll. It was very hard for me. I can remember paddling in a canoe and thinking to myself, I cannot do this. I'm way over my head.
As we paddled upriver, at times you got bored and you got tired, and it was just, you know, a lot of energy working. You know, you're getting real tired just paddling the canoe. So what we would do to break that monotony is we'd sing Indian songs, and we'd just even make up our own words, our own songs as we went up along the river, which helped us. It helped us gain strength, and it was almost like a spiritual thing that went into our bodies as we sang.
Each village had its own unique problems. One was getting the gear boat ready, but the other one was making sure that we had a proper crew boat for the crew that was going to be following the canoe upriver, where the river was being at such a high rate and moving at such a velocity. We had to make sure the safety factor that if anything ever happened with the canoe, the crew boat would be right upon them to take any of the team members that might fall into this river.
There were a couple of days that didn't think I was going to make it. There was a day where we had paddled 13 hours, like 55, 60 miles. And the last few miles were just never ending. We paddled and paddled and paddled, and it never got around that bend.
And by the way, in Alaska, when they tell you it's just around the bend, that's got to be at least 30 miles. Yeah. They're around the bend takes forever to get around. as we approached, you could hear gunfire. And that was an old, as we found out later, an old way they used to welcome people that came down. They'd fire guns to let people know somebody was coming. And everybody from the village would come to shore to watch.
It was certainly charged us all up. You could feel it. The canoe almost took on new life. It was like the canoe was becoming alive, and the people were becoming alive. The strokes were stronger. They were in sequence. Everybody was in time and pulling hard, and you could just kind of feel the canoe just surge ahead because it was like a shot of adrenaline to the boat.
It seemed like the whole village was out there greeting us, and we landed ashore in a canoe, and we came out and started singing our welcome songs. And it was something that we did, not just reenacting, but reliving ceremonies, welcoming ceremonies from people to people that I'd only read about that occurred here in this land centuries ago.
At the Penobscot Indian Nation, the state of Maine, we're very honored and privileged to visit you, people of Nulato. This is our first day. We traveled 35 miles up the river.
And then the men would carry, or sometimes we would, but the men would carry our canoe up on the shore. At least that happened at Nulato. And then we would go and prepare for a potlatch.
The potlatch which we saw has evolved. It was if you go into the anthropology books, the potlatch was a time where people gained prestige by what they gave away. And this relates to the sense of community which existed in Native American villages, and where sharing was very important.
Canoeing up the river was something that I had to really get used to. You know, it was a real physical challenge, but I think more of a challenge was adjusting to the different culture which they had, which I was not at all used to. The food was quite different than what we were used to with McDonald's and Pizza Hut. And
nothing was store-bought. You didn't have anything that was store-bought. It was all off the land and the water. I can remember going to a potlatch and asking the gentleman who was serving me soup. I go, what kind of soup is this? He goes, oh, this is moose soup. And I've had moose meat before. I go, all right. I sit down and I eat it all up, and I go back in the line again. And there's this elderly lady standing behind me, and she goes, oh, I see you like the moose head soup. And oh, my mouth drops. And oh, yeah. And not only moose head soup, they had moose nose soup, and they had beaver and bear fat. I think one place we had whale fat. They called it maktak.
I think the emotional and spiritual part of the trip grew more and more the further we went up. The people there were just unbelievable. People we didn't even know. They knew that we were coming, but didn't really know what to expect, and neither did we.
The singing and drumming and dancing really made me feel good inside. I had never had any connection with it. Never grew up near a reservation, so I had never been a part of any of that. Tribe and other tribes, it really made me feel good inside, and I really felt like I belonged there for some reason.
was sometimes almost unbelievable, just how friendly, how excited they were to have a dozen to 13 natives from another land come in and visit their village.
I don't think they were aware that other Indians were out there with the same problems as they had, and being part of the Sacred Run helped bring awareness to these people that we need to hang tough, whatever, to keep our culture alive.
I think we started to share our songs, and you know, we were enormous hits, and I think that really started to open up us to something more than we as just a group of paddlers, but more cultural and spiritual emissaries of you know, crossing the continent and then being in their land and being very much dependent upon the generosity of the Athabascans.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys. You guys are a great help.
The trip that we did, I think, is very, very special because we were Indian people going to a different land and visiting other Indian people, and that made it really, really special.
Broken off from its roots and fell right in the water within 20 feet in front of us. Splash from the tree, came right into the boat. It was that quick.
There was one spot, Bishop's Rock, which we had went up to see about a week earlier, and the current was pretty swift, had whirlpools and waves. And
our advance party had gotten a look at that.
Native people village that's canoeing with the team.
And the natives had suggested that we probably want to get towed up through that. So that was on our minds right from the beginning. You know, what are we going to do when we get to Bishop's Rock? And so we just kind of kept talking about it and then just waited to see what happened.
I guess I don't know what made us do it, but we decided that one of the teams was going to paddle up through it, and I'm glad it wasn't my team. But my father and a few other people paddled up through it, and I was watching them, and I really didn't know how to explain how I felt. You know, I was pretty proud of them for overcoming this obstacle. I guess it kind of showed to the rest of us that nothing really could stop us, and that we were going to paddle up the river, and that we could do it.
The Athabascans marveled at how we could paddle and up against the current in waters that they would not venture out into, and if they did, only with large boats that were very stable and had large motors. And we were out there, 6 or 10 men, you know, Armstrong motor power, and they marveled at that and were amazed at the kind of time that we were able to make on the river.
I remember, like we were talking, and the rapids. When we got to the rapids, it was quite an experience there, because we didn't really think we had much of a chance, you know, because the power of the river and all the boils that were coming up was pretty hard, you know, to actually challenge this river. But we decided to take what we considered was the 6 best paddlers in one canoe, and they tried it.
If there was a place in the river that I would definitely not want to swim, it was in the rapids. Very strong forces and whirlpools, and one of the people there in the fish camp had told us that there was a place there where I think it was 100 or some odd feet deep, and the water just swirled down in there and back out, and it just didn't sound like a very inviting place to be.
few strong eddy lines I do recall, which from the bowman's point of view were eye-awakening. It really got my heart pumping. One time I thought the bow got pulled out too much. It was a difficult approach because of the turbulent current.
I remember some spots where there simply were no eddies, and we just had to use all the strength that we had and mental toughness that we had, and just blow up through the current head.
And I did not sense at any time fear amongst any of our team. I sensed more grave concern and fear amongst the Athabascans. Maybe it was their deep respect for the river and how many lives it's claimed from their villages.
As I reflect back on the Yukon River, this is a mighty, mighty river.
The last night on the river was kind of a quiet night. There was, next day all we had to do was paddle about 5 more miles and we were done. We're at the bridge.
But it was kind of neat. We all sat around that night and just kind of reminisced and talked about different experiences we'd had and remembering the people that we had met along the way, and it was really a great time.
Emotionally, I mean, the mental toughness in order to complete this trip and to hang together as a team, even under the adversity that we were faced from time to time, that took a certain mental toughness. And we were a range of ages from late teens all the way up to Butch, our team captain. He's just a few days older than 39.
I remember when we first started singing songs and drumming for the Athabascans. And this is something I had never done before, and I was scared to do it, to get in front of anybody. With time, it became easier, and as we were on the river, of course, we were singing these songs, so I would be able to pick up on them. And towards the end of the canoe trip, it was a little easier to do this. And yeah, I was proud to do it, to be by the drum and be in the circle, singing and drumming for these people.
I remember I got my plate and I filled it up and I sat down. And once I was finally relaxed, my body started rocking. It was through just being on the river for so long that day that I guess maybe like a seasick effect or something. You were rocking.
I was proud of everyone that was on, any day that we did, not the longest day, not the shortest day. Any day that we did that came to an end, it was hard, and I was proud of the whole team, and including myself. I couldn't believe that I had done this.
The spiritual aspect is beyond my ability as a human to comprehend of what really happened with us all. We were hosted or sponsored by the Stevens Village community, and we were at the Yukon River Bridge, and we had a closing ceremony there for the canoe portion. We had Dennis Banks and part of the Sacred Run Foundation, and we conducted a pipe ceremony there, and we had a ceremony to commemorate the journey, at least on the river. I think it was kind of this bittersweet moment, really proud of our accomplishment. I was very proud to have completed that part, but also sad in that we were leaving the river.
The next day, as it goes on, we did a run from the Mento cutoff into Mento, which I think, to me, was the hardest part of the whole trip, was the running. I didn't mind the canoeing, but the running killed me right off.
For me, it was a welcome break from the sitting all day in the canoe.
One last day we had where we went outside of Fairbanks, and that was about, they said, a 20-mile run. And we finished off our run that day with the Sacred Run people. We ran into Fairbanks, which finished our trip.
When we finished at Fairbanks, then that truly was the end of the trip. Certainly the way that we did it, with just the Penobscots, just in our own circle, is appropriate and had a lot of meaning to me, and I think to the other team members.
Our journey is done.
Let's have a song. Let's have a song. We've come a long way in that work.
To Team Penobscot, we join with our families and community in saying thank you for blessing our homes and village with your visit. Be assured that you are making an impression and inspiring many people. It seems like these past several years we are generally called together only for funerals. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to come together for joyful, positive reasons. Perhaps now we will find more reasons within ourselves and our culture to gather and celebrate life. Being parents ourselves, we are especially proud of you young men. What you're doing, I know, is painful and calls for sacrifices, but it's also very wonderful. And I pray that each of you will be blessed graciously and generously. Be proud, yet humble, and strong, yet compassionate. Always know you have a home in Galena.
Jerry is governor of the Penobscot Nation, and he was our spiritual leader and lead drummer and singer for us during the journey. Mark is a counselor at the Indian Health Center on the reservation. He is a very experienced canoeman and accomplished racer. Nick is a tribal administrator. He is also a strong long-distance paddler. Paul, Nick's brother, is a retired Army officer, and he proved to be one of the strongest paddlers on the team. Paul Jr. is a student at the University of Maine. While he had limited canoe experience before he went on the trip, he turned into a good, experienced long-distance paddler. Pat is a union iron worker, a very strong paddler, and Pat, because of his personality, kept us laughing most of the time. Chris is a high school student and one of the 5 young men we had on the team under 20 years of age. Awani, another teenager and student, and a good endurance paddler. Brian, a recent high school graduate, turned into a strong endurance paddler as well. Chris, a big, strong youngster, is the only person to go the entire distance from Alaska to New Mexico with the Sacred Run. Scott, my son, employed by the Old Town Canoe Company, and we depended heavily upon him for decisions about the canoe and the river. S.C. is my brother-in-law, and he owns a store on the reservation. He was very important to the team as he was logistics man for us on the river. I'm Butch Phillips. I'm Lieutenant Governor of the Penobscot Nation. I was also team leader. I paddled astern in one of the crews on Team Penobscot.